Today, I'm back in the Copper State at a 1,600-acre, highly secured proving grounds right outside of Phoenix, Arizona with Volkswagen to drive their highly anticipated new 2022 Taos. Now, as you guys know, in the North American portfolio, the Taos is designed to be Volkswagen's new entry-level subcompact SUV, slotting below the Tiguan in their US portfolio. Now, I want to mention this is a very early prototype drive of some very early pre-production models, and VW tells me I'll be driving the full production spec car next month, right before the new Taos starts hitting dealer lots in June of 2021. Now, with nearly 70% of Volkswagen sales in America representing SUVs, the Taos is a very important new entry-level model for the brand. So if you guys are interested in purchasing the all-new Taos and you want to know how it rides and handles and how it fits into VW's lineup, you've come to the right place. So let's take a look at this all-important new subcompact SUV. Now, between the new Tiguan, Atlas, and Atlas Cross Sport, Volkswagen says they sold over 200,000 SUVs in America in all of 2020. So the Taos is designed to complement their ever-growing SUV portfolio. And even though I mentioned this is a subcompact SUV, technically VW wants you to think of the Taos as a smaller compact SUV. This is a very small vehicle in regards to the Tiguan and Atlas, but as you can see from the design of the car, it very much wears the traditional Volkswagen family resemblance here with the styling. I think they took a lot of the elements that I like from the current generation Atlas or the refreshed Atlas. I especially like it in this blue exterior color. This blue really pops, especially out in the light. On this particular model here, it's also complemented by this kind of black accented grille. You have the IQ light, which is standard. This SEL version has kind of like an upgraded LED light with them LED running lights and LED turn signals and full LED headlights. Overall, let me know what you think of the styling below. I think the Taos definitely is one of the more handsome looking crossovers. Although if you're wondering if VW is going to offer something like an R-Line package or a hotter R version, VW did not mention anything like that, but you should know that in the subcompact SUV segment, the Taos very much has a very distinctive look. It has that boxy look that a lot of Americans are looking for. Now, if you're wondering, where does it fit in the lineup in terms of size? I mentioned this is smaller than the Tiguan, but how small? VW says that the overall length of this new Taos is around 175.8 inches long. It's exactly 9.3 inches shorter than the Tiguan, which the Tiguan itself is already on the big end of a compact, more like mid-size SUV. Its wheelbase at 105.9 inches long is around 4 inches shorter. So this is pretty small, but it's still around 6 inches longer than a Honda HR-V. It's a couple inches longer than the Subaru Crosstrek, which is the segment leader in terms of sales. Now, if you're looking at the wheel options, this particular one here has a really attractive looking black wheel. This one that I'm showing you is also a front drive model. It's wrapped in two 15 wide tires. The all-wheel drive version will offer a slightly wider tire. VW says they offer a choice between a 17 up to a 19-inch wheel. This is an 18-inch wheel. I think it looks really nice with the blue exterior color that this one is painted in. It really kind of gives off a premium, almost Audi-like vibe, especially when you look at the curves. I also like the silver roof rails. You can get a panoramic sunroof. This particular one that I'm showing you has that option for you. And in terms of the side profile and how big it is, the Taos is actually a lot shorter than I thought. I'm only 5'7", but you can see it's not quite as tall as some competitors where they give you the extra ground clearance. Some of you may prefer that, especially if you have to put stuff on the roof. But if you're kind of looking for more of that off-road look, the Taos gives you more of a crossover design. Now, here at the rear of the new Taos, I really see a lot of influence from Audi back here. It reminds me kind of like of a mixture of a first generation Q7 and maybe the current generation Q5. You have full LED IQ taillights back here on this SEL version. You even have LED turn signals. And I also like how it's a very clean overall look. I'm not sure I'm in love with the way the Taos badging is here back here. I think it's a little bit too much. And of course, with a lot of other crossovers, you have the gray bumper cladding that's supposed to give it more of that rugged image. Now, in terms of the cargo area, VW said that they're probably not going to offer a power liftgate. Everything's still kind of being finalized, but the bigger proportions of the Taos give you way more interior space. The cargo area here, they say, measures around 28 cubic feet of space. Fold down the second row seats and you get around 66 cubic feet of space. That is roughly 10 more cubic feet versus the segment leader, which was the Honda HR-V. So then the Taos is now the one that's going to be offering the most cargo space if you guys are searching in this segment. Now, looking at the interior of the all-new Taos, if you guys have spent any time in the current crop of VW products, this is going to feel pretty familiar because the design reminds me a lot of the current generation Jetta. When I get in and shut the door has a relatively solid sounding thunk, and it's also really easy to get in and out of this vehicle. It's an SUV, it's what Americans really like. Now, here's the key fob for the vehicle. You can see it's the current VW key. It does include remote start. VW puts the button to fire up the engine over here by the shifter. You can see when you do that, you hear the typical VW chime, and you also have a pretty good amount of technology in here. VW says the digital cockpit display will come standard. It's a 12-inch display, and you also have an 8-inch display here. That's part of their Discover Media infotainment system. It does offer things like Android Auto and CarPlay. I'm not going to talk too much in depth about this system right now because this car, as I mentioned earlier, is a very early prototype. VW is still making some tweaks here and there, but let's at least talk about the interior, the technology, and the materials quality. Now, this is a subcompact entry-level SUV, so I don't expect it to feel like a luxury car in here. And you can see the materials on the dashboard here are hard touch. There's a little bit of storage here, but they did put some soft touch materials here with some faux stitching. And this soft touch material is kind of carried over onto the door panels of the front doors, which it's nice and padded over here. And you also have some of this contrasting stitching, and you have a padded area right here. The seats, you can see, I really like this two-tone leather look that you find with the gray, the black, the contrasting stitching. VW does offer heated and cooled seats on this car. That's a huge option to get. You typically don't find it in this segment. So if you're looking for heated and cooled seats, this is one of the few that offers that. My tester here is also an 8-way power driver seat with a 2-way lumbar support. I find the seats to be very comfortable and supportive, and I really like the overall feel here. Now, looking at the steering wheel, you can see this is the current VW steering wheel. You have the new VW emblem over here with this nice looking integrated look for the airbag cover. The horn has a really puny sound that matches the look of the car, so I imagine some owners are probably going to change out the horn. The steering wheel offers a pretty good amount of adjustability for the tilt and telescoping feature, which is what people like. If you're looking for driver assistance tech, VW says their suite is going to come standard. So you'll have automatic emergency braking, you'll have lane departure alert, but if you want adaptive cruise, that's going to be part of an option on higher trims. My tester being an SEL gives you, like I said, the heated and cooled seats, and you have dual zone automatic climate control. There's a little bit of storage over here, along with a wireless phone charger. I imagine that's optional. A lot of empty buttons over here. You can turn off the start stop over there, but I imagine some of the higher trims, maybe the European models, will fill these buttons with something. I'm imagining the American versions will kind of leave a lot of empty buttons over here. The center console area you can see is a nice padded armrest, and it offers some decent storage. Underneath here you can see you can fit a whole dispenser of or disinfectant wipes in there. But overall, I really like the interior feel of this car. It's pretty roomy. It's really easy to see out of. It's filled with most of the tech, and I think the extra space that you get in the Taos is going to be a huge deciding factor for a lot of American buyers. Now, getting into the back seat of the new Taos, because this vehicle is slightly larger than most of its competitors, the company was basically able to give Americans exactly what they want, and that's more rear seat legroom. The company says you get around just under 38 inches of legroom back here, which is massive. This actually has 2 more inches versus what you find in the company's larger Tiguan. So that's really going to be a head scratcher for a lot of you that are cross-shopping the Taos and the Tiguan. You can see at 5'7", I have a ton of space back here to really stretch out. There's plenty of foot space underneath the front seats. There is a little hump here for the all-wheel drive system, but you do get features like a USB-C charging port. You have 2 outlets back here, air vents, which is nice, and you also have 2 map pockets. Now, in terms of comfort, you can see the seat is covered in a pretty nice leather material. There's a armrest here that folds down and gives you 2 cup holders. And then above me, this particular SEL has a massive panoramic sunroof, one of the largest that I've seen in this segment. Unfortunately, it is still a subcompact SUV, and the materials back here are hard touch plastic. But overall, if you're looking for a big back seat, this is the one you want to take a very close look at. Now, under the hood of the new Volkswagen Taos, we're actually going to find an all-new engine for this model that was developed specifically for the Taos. It's a 1.5 liter turbocharged direct injection 4-cylinder. The engine has an internal name called EA211. It's actually a modified version of the 1.4 liter motor that we found in the current generation Jetta. VW says they bumped the displacement, and they also improved the horsepower by about 11. So now we get 158 horsepower and 184 pound-feet of torque. The torque number stays the same as the 1.4. However, VW says that 35% more torque is available at 1500 RPM. So they've basically bumped up the torque curve, and we should get best-in-class fuel economy because of that. Now, I don't have final fuel economy figures just yet. VW says that'll come at a later date, but the Taos, like a lot of competitors, will be offered in either front-wheel drive or the company's 4Motion all-wheel drive system. Now, this one here that I'm showing you is the front drive model. The front drive versions will come with an 8-speed conventional automatic, while the all-wheel drive versions will actually get a 7-speed dual clutch transmission. Now, I'm going to be driving this vehicle later on. I'm going to spend most of my time most likely in the all-wheel drive model, since that's probably the one that a lot of Americans are going to be buying. Now, originally I wasn't going to be able to show you guys how the new Taos drives, but at the last minute VW said that I could go to the driver training course, which is kind of like a slalom, and we're just going to go through a couple of cones and we're going to see how the new Taos handles. Now, for this part, I'm actually in a front-wheel drive Taos with the 8-speed automatic. The all-wheel drive version, VW needed it for another thing, so I'll have to drive that next month. But this is the one with the 8-speed auto. Remember, we've got a 1.5 liter 4-cylinder with 158 horsepower. And I'm noticing one thing immediately: the new Taos definitely feels small. The Tiguan and the Atlas feel massive in comparison, while this definitely has that nimble feeling. This is the MQB platform, remember, so it actually kind of feels like a taller GT or Golf, not necessarily a GTI. It doesn't have the power for that. I'm noticing the 8-speed is a little bit lethargic at times when I'm asking for it to downshift when I'm doing full throttle, but I am genuinely surprised at how well this thing handles. The Taos has a good amount of body lean, but it's surprisingly stable. That cone wasn't supposed to be there. Now, the other thing I want to mention is the front drive model doesn't have an independent rear suspension. That is reserved for the all-wheel drive version, which has a multi-link setup. So I'm imagining the all-wheel drive model, which I did drive earlier, not on camera, but does handle a little bit better than the front drive model, and the dual clutch in that version is significantly quicker to shift. Now, does this feel faster than the last Jetta with the 1.4 that I drove? I can't really tell until I drive the two cars back to back. It does feel more fun versus the Tiguan, which offers a 2-liter that has around 30 more horsepower. But the Taos really is showing you VW's strengths with the MQB platform. It is a great chassis that feels stiff. The steering is quick and responsive. The body is, or the suspension is soft, but you can see the Taos just handles really well. This is a really well-oiled machine. I mean, subcompact buyers who buy these things aren't going to be pushing it this hard, but it's nice to know that the Taos can definitely handle these situations. And it also is nice to know that VW is trying to make this more of a sportier drive versus the Tiguan, which is often criticized as being a little bit too comfortable and a little bit too soft. Now, it's not every day that I get an opportunity to spend the day at a proving ground driving some very early prototype models. So when VW offered me this chance, I jumped at the opportunity to actually be able to drive one of these early build models. And after spending the day driving this new Taos, I'm pretty impressed with what I see overall. VW really nailed it in terms of the interior. The back seat, the trunk, the interior has a ton of space for Americans. It has most of the technology you want. Even though the design of the Taos, I personally think it's a handsome looking vehicle. Some of you may question it and say that it's a little bit boring. I think that's what's going to help it sell really well. And really, if you guys are shopping for a Tiguan and you don't particularly like how large it is, or if you're looking to trade in your first generation Tiguan, this is the model you're going to want to look at, because it is just the right size for a lot of buyers. And really, it's going to come down to the pricing, because as you guys saw, it rides and handles pretty well. It's definitely on the sportier end. The engine has sufficient power, not overwhelming amounts of power, but nothing in this segment really does. But in terms of the price, VW says that's not ready just yet. I'm going to estimate this car is going to start in the low $20,000 range. I mean, the Tiguan is around $26,000. Most competitors in this segment are around the $21,000 range. I'd expect the Taos to be a little bit more, but fully loaded versions like this one, they're probably going to be in the $35,000 range. Really, this is all speculation. VW will have final pricing for us next month, or in a month, a little bit over a month, whenever this car does go on sale in June. But overall, if you guys are looking at the Taos or the Tiguan and you want something that is slightly more refined with a ton of space but not quite as large on the outside, you need to be sure to put this one at the very top of your list, especially when it goes on sale later this June. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my exclusive first drive look, very early look at the all-new 2022 VW Taos. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.